Hello and welcome to a look at the Commodore 64 version of Rodland, an arcade conversion of a Jaleco original that was converted to the Commodore 64 by the sales curve. As you probably gathered from the introduction, Tam and Ritz even, mother has been kidnapped and it is their task to go out and rescue her. The plot is something along the lines of them waking up one morning and everyone in the village has been turned into odd creatures of a unfriendly disposition. And of course, in the process, their mum was kidnapped, and they, as I said, has to go out and try to rescue her. You can play this game either 1 or 2 player, and you can also decide which of the sisters that you play in the options menu. So you have a free choice of which one you want to play if you're playing by yourself. But of course, games like these will always be better being played 2 players. The overall objective, of course, to rescue your mother, requires that you go through 32 screens or scenes if you want, and every 8th scene will feature a boss of some description that has to be defeated in order to progress to the next set of scenes. So you can probably gather there will be 4 total levels. Each level will consist of various enemies that will be more or less aggressive and more or less unpredictable in their movement. And the different levels will also feature pickups that you can, oddly enough, pick up. And if you do pick them up, then this extra game will happen where all the remaining enemies will turn into bonus creatures that you can destroy in order to get extra letters. And of course, you can probably gather by yourself if you spell the word extra, you will get an extra life. The various different scenes or levels, if you want, are designed in such a way that you have to be a bit creative in your navigation if you're trying to pick up all the pickups in order to get the extra game going. Thankfully, you have the ability to summon a ladder in going up or down, depending entirely on what you need from it. And of course, both you and enemies can navigate said ladders, so it is something to be careful about that you don't end up actually creating an access point for an enemy that will vomit you and cause you to lose life. Just gaining an extra life, hooray! Always nice. When you defeat an enemy, the enemy will drop a weapon of some description, either a bomb that will blow up on the spot, causing anything running into it to turn into a fruit. You can get dynamite, which creates power lines in those directions. You can get the power coins, which even will bounce in the direction you push them, and rockets that will go in the direction you push them, and so on and so on. And of course, any enemies being hit by whatever weapon type thing it is will get blown up and turn into a bonus. In order to knock out the enemies, you have to catch them with your wand and then knock them senseless by pressing the fire a few times in order to alternately swing them from side to side. The interesting thing about this version is the fact that if enemies are being hit by other enemies being knocked about, they will actually be destroyed. and that is definitely something that is not present in the other version I have already covered of this game. Looking at the technical side of things, from a graphical point of view, the game is definitely not bad looking. A certain amount of effort has been put into making things look rather detailed. I was about to say for a Commodore 64 game, but that would have sounded wrong. But more, I would say for an arcade conversion. A lot of arcade conversions on the Commodore 64 feels like the developers have just been trying to thrive on the existence of the original and getting a quick sale based on the name alone without much effort being put into making the game neither visually nor audibly enjoyable or gameplay wise even remotely interesting. But in a graphical regard, the game is definitely not bad looking. It can't compare to the original, but no one would expect that. The sound design and the title music is funky and cute, as you would hope it to be, expected to be, based on the game type, and the sound effects are decent enough for what they are. There's no in-game music when you're playing, but the sound effects are serving the purpose perfectly fine. The controls are by and large spot on, but I have to admit it can feel a bit iffy getting off ladders from time to time, but outside of that, the controls feel precise and responsive. The gameplay is what you see. It is a platform game with collectibles and enemies to defeat, and the game type is not necessarily the most unique game style type thing ever conceived. But of course, it has its own unique style and power ups and all sorts of things. Or weapons, I should say, not so much power ups. So, in that regard, it is slightly unique compared to many other platformers. The difficulty level of this game is not necessarily the highest I've ever played in any game of a similar type, and playing this game two players, you would most likely be able to beat it relatively easily after a handful of attempts. The challenge level is not particularly high, but I suppose in regards to a lot of games, the difficulty is artificially high in order to get a sense of longevity. And even though I do prefer slightly more difficult games because it gives you something to work for, at the same time, when it comes to being able to complete games, I would rather have that the game was slightly easier and completable than extremely difficult and virtually impossible to complete. Oh no, the Commodore 64 version of Rodland is not bad at all in its own right, but I will say that if you are familiar with the Amiga version, have played it, seen it, whatever, the Commodore 64 version undeniably is going to seem a bit tame in comparison. But this is not a comparison video, and standing on its own 2 feet, the Commodore 64 version is entirely enjoyable. Thanks for watching, take care, see you next time, bye bye for now.